And good evening, one and all. Thank you for attending. Thank you for coming, and very happy to see everybody here in the chat room. Let me welcome to the Learn CNC with Javi show, or actually, I'm just going to call it CNC with Javi now because half the time you don't learn anything. So, show number 18, and tonight's show we're going to be discussing, amongst other things. By the way, if anybody has any questions, feel free to put them up there, and we'll get to them. Anything regarding CNC. And we're going to be discussing the useless challenge back in April. Tonight, our panel here, amongst some other judges off screen, have voted and will vote on the top 3 choices. And I'll be sharing some of those entries with you. But first, let's introduce the panel and stuff. Anyone who wants to, let's go ahead and start with you, Juan.
Hello, my name is Juan Lopez. I have a channel not too active, but it's under G Code One Design here on YouTube, and I am quite active on Instagram. So, and thanks for having me, Javi.
Thank you. And Mark, introduce yourself.
Hey, y'all. I'm Mark Lindsay. You can find me here on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook. That's where I'm most active when I am active, and on Twitter as well, under Mark Lindsay CNC. And thank you very much for having me here, Javi.
All right, very welcome. And Steve?
I'm Steve from Makers Media Network and Harneo Media. You will find me on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And I'm also here almost every week. Thanks, Javi.
Oh, thank you, Steve. And Peter. You're muted, Peter.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having us on, Javi. Yeah, hi, guys. Thanks for having us on, Harvey. My name's Peter Pasquale. I go under the name of CNC Nuts on YouTube, Facebook, and anywhere else. Pleased to be here. Thanks, Harvey.
You're very welcome. And let me quickly pull up the playlist real quick. I had it up and I seem to have closed it, so bear with me. And let me allow me to share my screen here. And what I'm going to do is there's only 6 entries this year, so that'll save us some time compared to the 14 entries last year. Saved me a lot of trouble. I didn't have to go in and edit them all. I could just play snippets live here on the show. So the Useless Challenge playlist, I'm going to do a quick screen share. And for all you guys who haven't seen the entries, here are some of the entries for the Useless Challenge this year that we'll be voting on. And let's see. We'll begin with the wood stove from Rumi's Garage. I'll skip through certain parts here. The next one on the list here is going to be the from Tech Ed Fireman. By the way, for those of you wondering what the criteria is, we're going to be judging on clearly uselessness. It has to be useless. comedy is a factor, and design or style of any particular piece. Nick this year has created an interesting piece. You'll see him chopping up the blocks. I will fast forward over here to the spray mounting. He is mounting them on a towel, for those of you unaware. And for those of you wanting to watch the entire video of any of these makers, feel free to drop in on my channel. They're all linked on the playlist, so you can just go there. And here we go.
On the floor.
Oh, sorry. There we go. There's some water.
I clean it up. Let me try my useless towel.
He made a useless towel.
Nope, doesn't work.
Clearly, it's useless. And now the next one here is the mini nunchucks. This is Kinderhook, and he's making the useless nunchucks. And the best part, I believe, is, let's see here. Let me just fast forward to the end here.
It is my entry for the almost useless project challenge. I shouldn't need to explain why these are almost useless. I hope a full-size version of these can generate enough force to crush coconut. But these I don't think would really crush anything. Maybe I could try to break a pencil or something.
Those are cool.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't finish these. I didn't sand them over. It'd be almost useless to do so.
Nunchucks
Could have put this knot,
that can't even
pull on the strings in such a way you can make that knot disappear. And that's what I've done with this one. This one was.
And then we have the wooden bobber.
What did he make those out of? Mozzarella?
I'll tell you, it's hilarious. I'm thinking to myself, there's nothing that can be so useless that, I mean, it's a piece of wood. It'll clearly break a pencil at that rate. Nope. Let me introduce the music here. This particular one, Revamped Outdoors, is making a useless, well, you can read it there, the wooden bobber. Now, you might think to yourself, wait a second, a wooden bobber is actually going to work.
Yeah, because I've got wooden bobbers.
Right. Well, now here's the thing. When you create your wooden bobber, or do you take and bear with me. Let's see where the part comes up. There it is. He sliced it in half. And now he's going to, he switches to the other chuck so he can create a hole. Well, I'll skip to the next part. Like I said, if you want to look at any one of these videos, he's actually creating a space inside the middle of the bobber for, of all things, you'll see, a lead weight.
Lead weights, okay.
That's what it needs.
So it's almost useless.
So here we go. And So that's the useless wooden bobber. Rich McNatt had an interesting one here.
Oh boy.
Let's see how. Well, needless to say, there are a lot of popsicle sticks involved in this.
Oh.
Oh God, I love these videos.
The music.
Oh yeah, that's just fantastic. I mean, it brings me back to my youth. And so, well, I did sit and watch through, but for the sake of expediency, I'll jump through it. But I did sit and watch nice and patiently with an incredible amount of curiosity. What in the world is he building?
Yeah.
And then I continued, what in the world is he building? And he continues with more children's songs.
Wait. Did he build a jig for that?
Is it? No, it's hot gluing. It's so he continues.
Okay, it just looked like he was using a jig there for a minute.
And here it comes.
I had a bevel gauge at one stage. High precision.
A new back window for his truck.
A new back window. It's either a back window, or the only other thing that I can guess is
A headache rack.
It's a rack for wood, so he won't damage his truck.
Well, yes, it's a wood rack, of course.
It's a wood rack. So,
Or a roll bar.
or a roll bar, yeah. So, and finally, and certainly not least, this is Mike Haichu's project. Let me keep the volume at a minimum so I don't get well. Not that it matters because I'm not monetized, but
A canoe.
now this
Yeah,
is
But you don't want a copyright strike no matter what.
right. And now, so this is fantastic. The design of the
That's very cool.
well, wait, but wait, there's
But
more.
wait, there's more. Let me guess. Screen door.
No, it's only 2 minutes. I might as well watch this all the way through. So, as you'll see here, you can't go canoeing without refreshments. So, clearly, he's turning some refreshments. There you go.
Okay.
Bottles of pop. Something to carry the refreshments in.
This gentleman is an overachiever.
I love it.
I like it.
Look at this. It's a Yeti cooler, not just a regular cooler. It's a Yeti cooler. look at that. I wish I had ice cubes that big in proportion for my cooler. But a couple more things are needed for our little trip.
I wouldn't call that useless.
Well, think about it. Can you fit in the boat?
You can sell it.
Well, yeah.
Well, you could sell any of it.
Yeah, technically all of these are props, but I mean,
I don't know about Rich though. I don't know how many buyers he'd get.
I don't know. There you go. Oars and a life vest.
Okay, the life vest. Yeah.
I think the life vest is a tad small. But anyway, this is Mike Haichu's project, and let's see. That's it.
Really cool.
So those were the 5 entries. Let me, 6 entries. Sorry, those were the 6 entries. So feel free to send me your internals, so you know nobody can rag out on you for not voting for them, or vice versa. But let's see what kind of comments we have from the peanut gallery over there. Anyone? Let's see here. Well, Sean was commenting on a nice beard, Mark. Let's see. The 3-year-old daughter has seen you and asks if you're Santa, if you know Santa, if he knew Santa.
Well, I know Santa, so I would have to ask, have you been good?
There you go.
Have you been good?
And so, well, Jim, hello and goodbye. I guess he popped in and popped out. And hello, Tracy, Jim, Rich, Frankie, Keith, TJ, Sean, Jeff, and the rest. Steve Misher, Troy, Thomas, Nathan. And so let me take a look at the bear with me. 3. All right, so let's go. And bear with me, folks, while I do some quick calculations with the ones that I already have here.
You know, they said there would be no math.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Well, I can tell you all right now, we have a clear winner for the number 1 spot, which it's close to unanimous as the canoe. Let's work on the other 2 right now. Okay, and so the second place is the nunchucks. So second place is the nunchucks, and third place is the wooden bob, the wooden bobber. Let me write these down before I forget. So, for those of you paying attention, first place for the 2018 Useless Challenge is the incredible canoe. The second place is those wonderful useless nunchucks that can't even break a pencil. And the third one, of course, is the wooden bobber that sinks straight to the bottom. Now, with that being done, let's talk CNC. Is there anybody out there that has any particular questions on any projects that here? I'll share something that I've done.
Well,
that
first,
I'm working on today. Go ahead, Mark.
First of all, congratulations to the winners. I mean,
yeah.
It wasn't easy at all, believe me. I came into this tonight kind of last minute and had never seen these before, so as a judge, I was almost useless myself. But Javi wouldn't take that as an entry. So
there you go. Well, you're not made of wood.
There are some that would argue with that.
And you're not funny. Oh, I mean, no, of course you are. The thing about the Useless Challenge every year, I mean, for those of you who want to enter it, I will be having it again April of 2019, because despite it's a small success, it's a success. And I really, this year I didn't really push it as much as I did the year before. the hard part about the useless challenge is to try to come up with something, because it is a creative task. It's not, oh, let's just, it's not a box challenge. Let's make a box. It's not a pallet challenge. Let's make something out of a pallet. It's something you actually have to put your mind to and say, what can I make? And those are always the most difficult. I've got a much easier challenge coming up June, July, August. It's going to be a summer challenge. It's the Almost Renaissance Man challenge. And what I mean by Almost Renaissance Man is I'm going to have a list pretty soon. I'm doing the video this week, sometime during the week. I'm going to have a list of numerous disciplines, whether it's working with a bandsaw, turning, working with a CNC, everything related to wood. And you have to create a project incorporating, say, if I put out 20 different disciplines, maybe 15 of those disciplines. So it'll show off your skills as a, I don't want to use the word entrepreneur, so I'll use Renaissance man. There are people that don't have, I'm not going to say all of them, although if you can manage all of them, that would be a feather in your cap. But that's why it's an Almost Renaissance Man challenge, because not everybody has a lathe or lathe skills. Not everybody has a scroll saw. Not everybody has a CNC. So most everybody's got a table saw, a drill press, a planer, sander of some sort. So all these tools will incorporate, show them in your video and incorporate them in your project. And, you know, we'll be counting them off, and the design of your project matters. Comedy, as always, in all my challenges matters. And that's it. That's pretty much it for the next upcoming challenge.
Does finishing count as a discipline?
Finishing counts as a discipline, yes. So for those of you who are really, really good, or can fake it and just put a whole bunch of layers of shellac and make it look nice, well, technically that's finishing. Is this the challenge where we have to lay on a scaffold and paint the ceiling? Jim Bashir's asks. No, Jim. This one's a lot easier than that. So, and as always, in November, look forward to my 30-day challenge. I didn't succeed last year. In fact, the only person, well, 3 people succeeded in creating a project a day, technically, possibly, but one person, and only one person, and he's sitting on this panel, named Peter Pasuelo, actually created a project a day, funny every day, and made a video every day. So
yeah, he did.
It's an absolutely incredible task. I'd love to see others rise to that level. Peter has raised the bar for everyone. So
Certainly has.
And thank you, Peter.
Thanks, Harvey. It was an interesting challenge. I don't know if I would want to do it again, though.
Exactly. It's something to do once in a lifetime or once in a while, but it's a challenge. That's what challenges are. And then, does anybody have any CNC questions out there? And no, Steve, I'm not doing a Diet Coke giveaway. My wife, when she finds them at a deal, like $2.50 a 12-pack, well, I stock up. I'm avid Diet Cokeaholic. Let's see. Have you gentlemen been working on any projects recently?
I have not. I've been slacking.
I know the feeling.
Quite a bit.
I've been waiting on a guitar build.
Oh yeah.
Waiting on a guitar build from Juan or from or your? Ah.
I got a guitar and I got a cigar guitar, or I want to build as well. One thing's want, one thing is to go out there and do it, right?
Yep. Yep. That's okay.
I'm planning on it.
How about you, Peter?
Well, the last thing I made was Vacuum table. I had a lash at building a vacuum table for my CNC. I finished that up. That's the last project. Not quite sure what I'm going to do next. Just plodding along. Nothing planned at this stage.
I've got a little project that I just finished. I'm heading off to visit some family in Central Florida, and my cousin, his daughter likes, well, without naming brand names, the 6-foot-tall mouse. And she, well, she's a big fan of
the rodent.
Of the rodent and all that it encompasses. And so she has absolutely no clue, but her dad asked me to do something for her on the sides of the house. She's got 2 gabled ends, and some houses have those vent holes, those designer vent holes on the sides on gables. And my cousin thought, wouldn't it be neat to have a faux vent thing in the shape? So he'll finish it later, but so I figure, what the hey? I might as well.
That's more kinds of awesome than I can count.
It's just, I mean,
that's cool.
I made one for either side of the house, and hopefully, you know, they'll paint it or not, and it's cedar, so it'll withstand the elements, and yeah, it's just,
that's awesome.
Those are the kind of things I like to do. I mean, I'm not in it. I'm not in woodworking. Well, whether you're in it or not to make money, you don't. But
you couldn't be. You don't have a beard.
Yeah, there you go. I'm not in woodworking to make money. I'm in woodworking for the joy of it, as many of us are.
Yeah.
And I always try to come up with something creative, something. There's nothing really new out there, but there's always different twists on different projects. What say you?
Well, now that I've got my rotary axis done, I think tomorrow's video should be the last one in the series. I added a touch plate to it. Spoiler alert.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I didn't add it. I just figured out how to use it. But anyway, so that should be the last one of that series. Then I've got 2 birthday presents to do. And I'm going to make a fixture, an engraving fixture for some little things that I need to engrave. And I'm going to go ahead and shoot video on some of it. The birthday gifts, I've got one granddaughter who's absolutely in love with all things Harley Quinn from the comic book movies. I don't know which series it is. I am not a nerd in that direction. I don't know if it's Marvel or DC or which one.
Well, it's DC because it's Batman, and it's the oh God, what are those 4 things that movie came out? I just blanked. But,
well,
yes.
To me, Batman ended when Adam West and Burt Ward went off the air. So, you know, I'm old. What can I say?
When they hung up their tights.
So I'm going to be doing exactly when they hung up their tights. I'm going to be doing Harley Quinn. I'm going to be decarving that. I bought the pattern for that from Charles Deering's website, and then the other daughter is a massive Bob Marley fan, so I'm going to be decarving a portrait of Bob Marley for the other granddaughter, and just doing all kinds of stuff. So.
Oh, fantastic! Yeah, I actually am looking at well, eventually, and that word is quite popular with everyone. Eventually, when I get around to it, hey, where is my round to it? Oh, here it is. Eventually, when I get my round to it, I'm going to. I'm following in your footsteps, Mark, but I didn't want to create I wanted a dedicated CNC lathe, so I was gonna, based on Dave's design, I was gonna use the head and build a stand for it and something you know, decent size that I can play with. But in the meantime, I thought to myself, I was just thinking the last couple days, because I was looking at your videos, and I thought to myself, well, I actually have a rotary, a fourth axis from my laser, and it's got a. I already looked at the stepper motor. It's the same, with a quick adapter from 9-pin to air. What are those? Airplane. Those airplane plugs, whatever they're called.
Aircraft connectors.
Aircraft connectors. Thank you. That was it. From a quick rewiring, a quick adapter plug I can make, and I can actually hook that one up to either one of the CNCs. And this one in particular, actually, the gantry, it sticks out because it's made to have that type of feature. So I was thinking, it won't take me long to. I mean, it'll take me a couple hours to rig that up and have something similar to you. So we'll be chatting to see what kind of interesting things, just to have the ability to make something and just to goof around with it. But I do eventually want to make a dedicated unit with a deep reach, and possibly a 12-inch throw, which again, I'd probably have to get very long bits, and that's impractical. So,
and that's why. And that's why I have this set up as a rotary axis to work with my Z axis, because a CNC lathe is a completely different animal. I've had a few people ask me, well, can't you get that to spin real fast so you can do sanding? If I set it up as a lathe, yes, I can. But a CNC lathe introduces tools from the side, usually not from the top. And they will spin, I mean, pretty ding-dong fast, faster than a standard lathe will. Just Google CNC lathe and just do a search on YouTube for CNC lathe and you'll find all kinds of stuff. But they are different animals. A rotary axis is, although I'm using it right now to turn round objects, that's generally speaking not what they're for. They're to make 3D objects in the round. My ultimate goal down the road, and I'm miles away from it yet, but my ultimate goal down the road is to be able to chuck a blank between centers and CNC a guitar neck on it, which is not round by any stretch of the imagination, but it's that kind of thing that I'm shooting for eventually.
I'd like to do something like, I want to put small bits and make, I don't know, just for fun, stick a dowel in there, make some chess pieces, things like that. Because I was talking about it with Eloy. I don't know if he's still out in the hangout today. I was talking with Eloy, and we were looking at all different types of wood items on Etsy and all these other places, and say, hey, can we make that? Can you make that? Can you make that? And there are very few things that the lathe can't make. Well, that's not true either, but there's very few limitations, and the big limitation is it can't. I was thinking about the knight. It could easily, I mean, when you turn it and you're going at it from one angle, obviously left and right, up and down, but from a 90-degree angle to the piece, you could turn it. But then I thought to myself, well, when you get to the horse's head,
the top of the head,
to the nose of the head. Here, let me.
Now, a rotary axis could turn that, but a lathe wouldn't. And but you also still have a little bit of sculpting because you have to keep it between centers. So that one end, just that one part in the center between the horse's ears, for lack of a better description, you'd still have to do some hand carving there.
Now, this is my very, very crude drawing of a knight, and when you look at it from if obviously the piece would be here being rotated, and clearly it could do all the details but my biggest concern was when the rotary bit is going down, it can't get this section. But
it could from the side.
From the side.
Right.
So really, I mean, as long as your bit is small enough, yes, there are some intricate details that nothing but a master carver could make look fantastic. But for pumping out a bunch of, or unless you want to do really big pieces,
it cannot do undercuts, and it cannot carve out the center of something. So I could turn the outside of a vessel, but I would not be able to hollow out the inside of a vessel.
Right. But short of that, there's very few limitations. You would have to, you know, and I mean, unless you go 5-axis. But let's see. Are there any questions in the chat? Keith was asking if you're doing laundry in the background.
Is there some noise coming from my setup here somewhere?
There was earlier, not anymore.
There was earlier, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't know. There's several microphones on the laptop and things. I just disabled one. Hopefully it's nice and quiet now.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Much better, and your audio is much better.
Yeah.
Okay, good as gold. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. I changed to a different headset. But I think it was the built-in microphone in the laptop, since I got it closed here on the desk. I think it was picking up the fan noise from the CPU.
Yep.
That'd be my best guess anyway.
That sounded like it was. It's either, like you said, it's either fan or laundry.
Well, the clothes are now washed, so I'm going to go hang.
There you go. How many times have I told you not to wash clothes with your CNC? That's not what that's for.
Challenge?
Yeah, but boy, I'll tell you what, when that sucker spins dry, it spins dry.
Nathan wants to know what I'm doing with the laser. Well, okay. I did say I had a rotary axis from my laser. But for those of you who don't know the story, back in probably about 4 or 5 years ago, no, it's been longer than that, come to think of it, I had a sign shop for a number of years, for just a little over a decade. And near on the 8th year, I had a, well, let's just say an unfortunate incident. I was cutting, in fact, I have a piece right here. Something similar to this, black, not so dusty perhaps, black plexiglass, and we're cutting some pieces, and here we go. This is a domino set. I was just goofing around and created a domino set for myself. And when I say goofing around, I mean like here it's a double 9 domino set. This is nothing more than 1/4 inch PVC. I mean, sorry, 1/4 inch acrylic. It burns white like all PVC does when you, and well, you know, this is my narcissistic side. There's a nice little picture of myself with the shop. One of the customers came in. I was just doing this goofing around for myself. One of the customers came in and loved it. He says, "How much?" And I go, "I don't know. This is a lot of plastic and a lot of work on a lot of time. It's going to be this much." And he goes, "Yeah, I'll take it. In fact, give me 3." So I said, "Okay, sure." Oh, and by the way, in case you're wondering how detailed the laser goes, this is a double 25 set. For those of you that like having that many pieces, or if you really got a lot of friends and you're a social butterfly, here's a double 100 set. Well, that's just the piece, obviously. I didn't make the whole set.
Oh, come on, chicken.
So
yeah, how many are actually in a double 100 set?
There's an actual formula, and I did figure it out once. I think it was 9,600 and something. I'm not sure.
You know,
I know there's 155 in a double nine. What's that?
I said, you're just getting up to what's wrong with the laser.
That's what I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Getting there, keeping everybody enthralled here. All right, so I started the job. I finished 2 sets. I was on the last one, and lo and behold, someone knocked on the door. I stepped away from the laser, and this will be a lesson to all of you. If you have a laser engraver, do not step away from it for a second. I stepped away to open the door. I said hello to the customer. I was gone 4 minutes. This, in the 6 years I had that laser running, I've always had little flames. They've always been snuffed. Every once in a while, very rarely, I had a flame so big that, well, when it's cutting this plastic, the liquid produced by the heat, or the gases produced, and in combination with the heat of the laser, will light it. I do have a little blower blowing the air, clear, and I have a vacuum system with carbon filters and the works to clear the air. Long story short, it caught fire. There was more than enough liquid from the from the cutting, because this turns into a liquid. Part of it does when it melts. Caught fire. Clearly, if you have a fire, this will catch fire. But the worst part was that the fire was high enough that the heat caught the plexiglass top, the clear lid of it. It's a $20,000 engraver. It's got a clear lid to look at it with magnets all around and all this. Caught fire. The lid actually melted on top, and then more white smoke everywhere. I go to the, it was in a separate room, enclosed, but it was in a separate room. I opened the door to the room, and this billow of smoke comes out, and I go, oh my God. So I ran over there. I just hit it with the fire extinguisher. No big deal. Well, there was a big deal. The belts melted. Again, those are easily replaced. The bushings and stuff, no damage to anything. And the laser is underneath on these big machines in the back. But the big damage was that all that melted plastic landed on top of the rails. And I haven't gotten around to it. It's been 4 or 5 years or more. One of these days, I will actually get to taking my little Dremel tool, because they don't make replacement rails for this. I'd have to redesign the whole machine and put it back together. It's about $600 damage. But that's about it. That's the story. So, cautionary tale: never, ever leave your laser engraver unwatched, unattended. I've had a couple friends in the industry that have actually burned down a warehouse from one. It's there's this friend of mine who he supplies carnivals. I don't know if any of the carnivals around your area carry this. These like Mirror Magic or one of these. They're these little mirrored plexiglass, all different types of, usually copyrighted or trademarked things, but well, that's not my business. It's his. Betty Boop, or
are you talking like, you're not talking like the Funhouse mirrors or anything like
that? They're these little, they're 1/4 inch. It's basically, well, no, it's 1/8 inch acrylic with a mirrored background. They're translucent. They come in various colors. Okay. I mean, I could easily at my plastic supply house get this stuff, and it slices like butter with the laser. They have all the characters, and they make keychains out of them. They make emblems for their hats. They make it's all these little type of mirrored novelties.
Okay.
So this particular friend of mine, he supplied quite a number of carnies with this stuff. and one of his workers wasn't paying attention, and sure enough, one thing caught fire, and that thing spread like fire.
Yep.
But that's what happens. And I'll say this, as far as that goes, that's one of my biggest fears with the CNC machine is all it takes is one little ember to light up a pile of sawdust in your dust collector. I mean, it's if you've ever seen any of those YouTube videos where somebody lights the sawdust and it just
Yep.
goes up like sawdust. I mean, it's a scary situation when you think about it. So, I mean, it's a wonder it doesn't happen more often. I'm kind of puzzled about that, but I never really looked into it. Let's see here. Steve Carmichael is in the house. Good evening, Steve. Oh, Mr. Carmichael, or as I like to call him, Smiley.
Zach Manring's out there as well.
Zach Manring is here. Good evening, Zach. Hey. They got Georgia locked down. Okay, there. Yeah. If there is a woodworking chat room anywhere on YouTube, Georgia's locked down. You don't have to worry about that. I don't know what it is that they produce more woodworkers per capita in that country, in that state. Does anybody next week? Well, I haven't decided what to do next week. I'll come up with some project, but does anybody have any questions on general CNC knowledge? Whether it's working with, we have Peter Pasuelo here, whether it's working with hardware, with, by the way, watch Peter's videos. He's got people rave about it all the time, but a lot of how-to videos when it comes to tweaking your machine, whether it's working with touch plates or aligning your, what's that thing called?
Trimming the spindle.
Thank you. Trimming the spindle with that lot. I mean, that is, I know it's probably been done before, but the first time I saw it was with you, Peter, and I'd never done it on any of my machines before. Luckily, they were all near perfect, but that's
I got to
say, it doesn't always happen that way.
I got to say, if you are even thinking about becoming interested in CNC and you are not subscribed to Peter's channel, you're just wrong. You're just wrong. Get over there and subscribe. Peter was the first person I ever saw with a home hobby CNC, and his is above and beyond the home hobby level in my book anyway.
Peter's channel is on YouTube. It's CNC Nuts with a Z.
With a Z. And this is, so I started following Peter before the laser shoe. And I'm like, wow. I mean, so yes, by all means, get over there and subscribe to Peter's channel.
Got some very valuable information. And well, speaking of channels, what are some of your, do any of you have any particular favorites? I mean, I'll start the ball rolling by, and I'm not talking just CNC. I'm talking general woodworking, or general, if you want to say maker. There's one person who I always, probably I'll be a fan of forever, which is Frank Howarth.
Yep.
He's just undoubtedly I mean, in my eyes, he is miles above the rest in creativity and genius in design. And I hate to use the word genius, because when you call somebody a genius, somebody told me this once, he goes, when you call somebody a genius, it's kind of diminishing them. You're telling them that, oh, it comes naturally to you. And such is not always the case with everybody, but Frank has got some, it's just, every video is incredible. It's a masterpiece. The item he makes and the videography. I mean, I'm a big fan. How about you guys? Who do you particularly enjoy watching?
There are a handful of YouTube creators that the minute they post a video, I'm there. I'll stop what I'm doing and I will watch their video. Frank Howarth is one of them. I'll agree with you 100% there, Javi. There's two more that I will drop everything. One of them, they're kind of a maker. But this old Tony, I have become really, really enthralled with his videos. He's a home machinist. I don't know anything about metal. I've been a wood guy forever, but I don't know a thing about metal. But, you know, this old Tony, he throws humor in there. There's some seriously funny Easter eggs if you start looking for them in his videos, and he's very, very good at what he does. Another one is, and I've talked about this before, is Bad Obsession Motorsports. And they're kind of sort of makers in that they took a Mini and they're shoehorning the fuel-injected engine, transmission, independent rear suspension, and all-wheel drive system from a Toyota Celica into this Mini. And the entire thing has been basically ripped apart and fabricated over the last 4 years. For instance, they have spent just the last 6 months building HVAC system for it, because it's going to be a street car. But it's more than just working on a car. You are watching a 30-minute, it's a 30-minute long episode, but you're watching a 30-minute sitcom because they throw humor in there constantly. And it's your kind of humor, Javi. I think you'd absolutely, I think you'd like them. But they're
I'm
Bad
definitely
Obsession.
gonna look them up.
Bad Obsession Motorsports.
What about you, Peter?
Yeah, I like Colin Furr's channel. He creates weird and wonderful machines, devices. I don't know what you call them, projects. The last one I saw, he made something called the Hulkbuster, which, if you're into comics, you probably know what that's all about. I'm not, but it was something. I don't know how tall it was. Must have been at least 3-4 meters tall, and he was able to sit in it, shoots flames and punches things, and was able to move. Just incredible, made from steel.
Oh, nice.
And he also occasionally teams up with another YouTuber, James Bruton, who's into 3D printing. And I generally watch his stuff as well. He does robotics. I think his channel might be called X Robots. And you know, he makes robotic stuff, and he makes 3D printing stuff. In fact, he's actually just got himself a CNC machine as well. So it'll be interesting to see what else he comes up with as well. But those are the two channels that I really like to stop and watch whenever they post things. Just incredible things. Like I said, Colin Furr's, he made must have been a full size. I'm
looking at that Hulkbuster video of his. That's fantastic.
It's just incredible, you know. The TIE fighter. They was it a TIE fighter?
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, a hover bike.
Yeah, a hover bike. Actually, one that actually flew. Just incredible. And the 360 swing was 9 meters tall. It does a full 360-degree loop on it. Just incredible, the stuff he makes.
How about you, Juan?
Well, way out of left field, there's this one guy that I always do watch. Like Mark said, as soon as the videos come up, I'm there. But it's got nothing to do with CNC, honestly. It's he's one of my other hobbies, which I haven't done in a long time, is fishing. I love to fish and hunt and whatnot. And his channel was always, fishing and just doing the kind of stuff I like.
Well, we could tie that into this episode. We have a bobber that doesn't bob.
Yeah, there you go. His name was William B. Tedrick, and Fish Tales was his channel. It's just very relaxing. He's always fly fishing, and he's local here to Texas, and he, kayaks through all the creeks that are known here in Texas, and it's just something I like watching. Other than that, I just kind of binge watch everything CNC, but no particular YouTuber per se.
Alrighty. Let's see, folks out there. Let's see. Colin Furs. Let's see how many others. There were some other ones that came up.
Al Furtado, the Rebel Turner.
The Tradesman's Channel.
I'm not familiar with Al.
Al Furtado?
Mm-hmm. I'm not familiar with him. I'm not a turner, so there's a lot of extremely talented turners out there that I just don't follow.
Al is fantastic. Rebel Turner. Yeah, he is incredible. I mean, I'm a CNC guy, but I mean, you watch all the different disciplines, and there are some which I think I want to say it's Al. There was a video I saw the other day of this turner who you would think the video was sped up, but who was it? I wish Steve was here. The master of the skew.
Oh, I know who you're talking about now. When you said that, never mind.
My mind blanked, but I mean, he does everything with a skew, and he just, I'm watching his technique, and I'm going, oh my God, that's incredible. And you're looking at it, and you're thinking, this has got to be sped up.
Steve Jones.
What's that?
Steve Jones.
Steve Jones. Yep. Steve Jones. That's exactly right. And so, yeah, no, it's just it's incredible. I mean, there are some people who really stand out with the creativity, and that's the thing. We all talk about on a constant basis. You hear the oh, you're not a woodworker, you're a woodworker. You're not a woodworker if you have a CNC, if you watch was it Makers International?
Mm-hmm.
Makers International had a show some time ago where Chris Cute said it's the arrow or the Indian, was that the phrase?
I don't know.
It was or the arrow or the bowman, whatever the term may be, but they had a whole show on whether CNC was a tool or not. It's been done, and it's been done many times by different people, but he basically, what he said stuck in my head as far as the arrow and is it the arrow or is it the archer, basically. Because CNC is nothing more than a tool. It's an arrow. It doesn't guarantee you can have the best bow in the world and you won't be able to hit a target.
Yeah.
And you can have the most automated CNC in the world. If you don't know how to design it, if you don't know how to sand at the end, if you don't know how to finish, it's completely useless to you. It's like anything else. It's more than a tool. It's a tool.
The tool doesn't make the maker. I mean, you can have the greatest, most expensive, highest quality tool in the world, but if you don't know how to use it, if you haven't taken the time to develop the skill, I mean, it's just like anything else. It's just like playing a guitar. A more expensive guitar is not going to make you a better player. A more expensive car is not going to make you a better driver. You have to use it. You have to practice it. You have to become accustomed to it. Then you have to excel at it.
Darn, I better get rid of my Rolls Royce.
You know, so, well,
yeah.
I'm going to leave that up to you and your insurance agent.
There you go. No, but you're absolutely right. I mean, I've seen incredible creations made with the most inexpensive and the oldest of tools. Nothing beats a good sharp blade. And that leads me back to the point that what I enjoy most about any of these makers is not, I mean, sure, it's nice to see the popular tools. It's nice to see a whole garage filled with DeWalt's, which are fantastic and high quality, et cetera, et cetera. But what we're really all after is the design, the end product, the creativity, at least most of us,
and the enjoyment of actually doing it. I mean, when I see people like John Heights is building a new table saw this month and next month, probably at the rate he's going. And folks keep telling him, John, there are hundreds of good quality table saws out there that you can buy, but these are the kind of people that don't understand the enjoyment of actually making something just because you can. that there's a certain level of enjoyment in just building.
Yep.
You know,
it's funny because the I was thinking about it during Dave's show. By the way, for those of you who just joined us and don't know about Dave Gatton precedes me at 8 o'clock, and I'm on after his show, 10-15 minutes after his show each week now on Saturdays. And I was thinking about it during Dave's show. It's kind of funny, but a lot of us are creative and we're making our things, but I could probably spend a lifetime creating tools from tools. It's the funniest thing in the world, but I mean, I never thought about it before, but come to think of it, I've made so many jigs, and then you create. I made I cut some gears out for David Jones for Portal Woodworks. He had these plans, and on one of my shows, I actually showed how to replicate the gears in Aspire or in VCarve, and I cut them out and sent it to him. It's for a milling machine, gears for a milling machine. I mean, and it could be done with a CNC. It could be done with a bit of care and a jigsaw. It could be done with
scroll saw, bandsaw,
with a hand saw, with a coping saw. I mean, if you had enough patience and desire. And so it's. But when you think about it, you could spend all day long building tools, and then to make more tools, and
my grandfather told me that you have finally arrived when you have tools that fix tools.
Yep.
Then you finally have arrived.
Yep.
Well, that's the trick with the 3D printer, isn't it? It's meant to be able to replicate itself, make replacement parts for itself.
Yep. Yep.
As long as it's working, of course.
That's right.
In which case you don't need the parts.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. A lot of tools are that way. I mean, there's but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say you can build anything if you had a 3D printer and a CNC, but you're pretty darn well close. I mean, because one is additive, one is subtractive, and the CNC could take the place of so many different tools. I wouldn't say it's practical. Like we've all said many times, the right tool for the right job. Many times I've cut a rectangular piece with the CNC over and over just because it happened to be in the room and I didn't feel like going out in the backyard and running it through a table saw, but table saw would have been faster.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, I just think of it as an employee that doesn't call in sick. It works Sundays and doesn't ask for anything special. I don't have any drama. It doesn't come in hungover. It does what I want it to do. And, you know, I am doing other things, but I'm right there in the room with it. So. Yep.
Absolutely.
But
and,
John,
Frankie was just saying his best tools are the ones he built, and I agree. Those are certainly the ones I'm most proud of.
Well, you know what went into them, and you can fix it if it breaks. You know. But back on John and his table saw, somebody asked him why he was building one when he could buy one, and he said something that has stuck with me, and I've reused several times. He said, "Buying something is very seldom an accomplishment." And that stuck with me because that's absolutely right. There is a little bit of pride being able to sit there and say, yeah, I built that. So.
Yeah, well, his channel's called I Build It, not I Brought It.
That's it.
Yeah.
Nobody would want to watch him if he just went out and brought something. Here's the table saw I brought.
Yeah, there's another one I watch on a regular basis is John Hines. He's great. John Hines at Stumpy Nubs is another one that I love watching his videos. Jim Hamilton is just he's wonderful. And personally, I love his humor. I really do. I love that dry. I love his channel. There's a few, and then there's some channels that I watch for that have something to do with building, but it's more for relaxation. Like Matt Cremona's channel, I could watch his videos sawing lumber, resawing with a bandsaw all day long. Just sit back and mellow.
believe it or not, one that calms me down and I like to sit back and just relax with is Click Spring.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever watched any of his videos.
I've watched a couple. Yeah. Another one that I can relax with is and I really enjoy watching and good friends is Carl Jacobson.
Mm-hmm.
Carl and likewise as a turner, Steve, Temple Boy Turnings.
Yeah.
I mean, both of them are just in their own right. They're incredible turners. Incredible turners.
Steve is a hoot too. He's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, he's a blast. And the crazy things he turned me a baseball cap. He turned a banana. In fact, I'll never forget. We were watching him turn a pear. And this story's been on a few times on Eloy's channel. We were watching him turn a pear. He's turning, and it was a good pear. It wasn't just a round. It looked like a bell or something. It was a pear with the little stem and everything. And he finished. First of all, it was amazing. He puts it aside and he turns a banana.
Yeah.
The color of the wood, the heat, the lines that he used to burn it. It looked like it was. We were all blown away by the banana, so much so we completely forgot about the awesome pear.
It looked like a banana.
Looked like a banana. How do you turn a banana?
He did it.
He did it. You know. And Carl, every week there is another one. Every week he's his. If you ever want to be a good turner, just sit and watch
Carl.
Just watch, because I mean. For those of you that like learning by visually, by watching, go watch Carl Jacobson. Is just, you know, he's always got that smile on his face, like Steve Carmichael.
Yeah. His latest video, the shot here at Crater Lake, which is about 90 miles away from me, by the way, was a real good one. And he did a little bit of acrylic paint pour, a clean pour on it with a real interesting effect. I think that's pretty cool.
Yep.
That was a very good video.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. David was saying he turned a pineapple. Was it oh my God, my mind blanked all of a sudden, Steve. But one of that's another thing that I'm kind of glad you brought it up, the painting aspect, the finishing aspect. That's such a huge part of what we do in the CNC world. We can, I mean, I could show you this. I could show you this piece that I did as a vent cover, but if we actually put this piece up there, it doesn't really pop. It doesn't really stand out until it's finished. Well, this particular piece, it's going to be painted, but still, whether it's paint or whether it's finish work, nothing says you're done with the project until you finish it. And people often forget that when with the CNCers of the world, because they think the tool does everything, and clearly it doesn't.
Not yet, anyway.
Nope. Not yet.
Maybe one day.
Yep. That'd be nice. Speaking of Juan and Peter, I'd like to get your input on this. How do you, what techniques do you personally use for not ending up for limited sanding? I'll say. So when you get a piece, you don't have to sand it a lot. I'm talking about working with wood as opposed to MDF.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like, sharp cutters to start with is usually a good start, so it's not tearing the wood to pieces. Mm-hmm. Normally, for a 3D type thing, you want a small step over so that all the cuts are close together, so it tends to reduce the sanding. Other projects. There's no real way I've come up with to reduce sanding on those. You're not sort of 2D type projects, but they're normally cut pretty clean anyway to start with. And then I've got a disc sander anyway for just tidying up long, power sanding really where possible, rather than obviously if it's flat, then I can use a what the hell, a palm sander or something like that, random orbital. But yeah, mostly 3D is where you're going to need to really do the cleanup, and that fine step over, I find reduces that anyway.
If I'm not mistaken, you have a video on your channel about cleaning up 3D carvings with a Dremel, don't you?
Yeah, I did one. I used a little. I was trying to come up with a way of doing it because I'd had little furry bits left on a 3D carving, so I should just use a Dremel. But instead of putting a sandpaper thing on, I put a diamond cutter on, so that basically it really couldn't cut into it, but you could just run it quickly over the surface and just remove those little burrs. But I think sort of sanding mops have now come out. Something you can put in your drill press, and I haven't tried them yet, but yeah, it sounds interesting.
Yep, I've been hearing that. I've been hearing that a bit about sanding mops on I wonder how well that would work for intricate cuts. But Peter, you had a question earlier from PNG, and I know the answer, but he directed it to you, sir. VFD on 110 volts, possible?
Yeah,
a 2.2 kilowatt spindle. He's asking if the VFD would run on 110.
Well, I believe you require a 110 VFD to run on 110 volts, but you also need a I think it's a 110 spindle as well. I'm not sure, to be honest. Most of the common ones seem to be 220 volts, but if you know the answer, Harvey, you go for it.
Well, you just got it. It's you do need they do sell them, and you need a 110 VFD. Now, the VFD itself could technically step up 110 to 220 3-phase. It's just it'll require a heck of a lot more amperage. It's that simple. So you could do it both ways, but you're better off in most cases running a 220 line for the sake of for the sake of price and for the sake of power issues. It's a lot easier to convert the 220 to 220 than it is to step it up and deal with the rephasing. But that's the short answer.
I wasn't sure if the VFDs could actually step them up or not, but they can they?
They can step up, but you have to have a VFD that will step up that will step up to 220, because just read the VFD you have. If you can get a 110 volt VFD, but the question is it a 110 VFD that will power a 220, or is it a 110 VFD that will power a 110?
Now, wouldn't it? Now, I don't know anything about these. I don't have a spindle, and I'm not an electronics guy at all. But wouldn't it be a better option to go ahead and buy the spindle and VFD kit? That way, everything is matched up.
Absolutely.
It may be a little pricier, but sometimes pricier is worth it.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, the I would go with also with all these Chinese versions out there, I would definitely hunt around. Like Dave Gatton and myself have got the same VFD and water cooled spindle, and it was $400, and I love this thing. I swear by it. It's not that big of a price leap, and I've had it running for quite some time, and it's fantastic. Oh, by the way, I'd like to give a little shout out to Steve there. We were just talking about you earlier. I hope you heard that about your banana and pear and baseball cap and everything else. So for those of you who want to watch an incredible wood turner, right click on his message there, or rather click on his message there on the 3 dots to his right and subscribe to his channel.
Right click on it and open it in a new tab. That way you don't shut us off.
Yeah, there you go. No, it's actually left click. But yeah, when you click on go to channel, it'll actually open a new tab. But watch them later.
Yeah, there's another question there as well from Southern Ginger. Sorry.
From Zach.
Yeah, Zach. What is a good fluid for water-cooled spindles? And he's asking about distilled water. Now, I don't have a water-cooled spindle myself. I believe I can see one in the background there behind Harvey.
Yep.
But I would imagine that the biggest problem with a water-cooled spindle is freezing if you live in cold climates, because water expands when it freezes. So I would imagine some sort of a.
There are two major. Yep, there are two major issues with the water-cooled spindle, and it's funny because Dave has mentioned this story. I went over. Was it during the meetup? It was during the. We had a meetup up in Georgia for a Gatton meetup, and I say up in Georgia, it's down from the rest of the country, but I'm in Miami, so and I brought Dave a little present. I brought him a little flow meter, which I love my little flow meters. So we went to hook up his flow meter, and the flow meter didn't work. And I'm going, there's not much to it. There's a flow meter. I mean, and I had an extra flow meter just in case, but it's a little fan. It spins when water flows. Why is it not working? Could it be wrong? I blew into it. No, fine. Turns out that his lines were completely clogged with algae from not changing the water, not everything. So when you use antifreeze, well, it's bottom line is filter the water or keep it an entirely sealed system, or keep an eye on the water and change it often. Because whether it's because of the antifreeze or because of the humidity or because of just plain algae grows where algae grows, there was film in the water and all this, and it was clogging up the lines. It was clogging up actually the pump, and we flushed it all out, and everything was running perfectly fine. And the beautiful thing about water-cooled spindles is that you could do an awful lot of work with that thing filled with water, and it's not likely to overheat, even if without water flowing through it. But there will come a point where where it will be maxed. But as far as what type of fluid, keep in mind you don't want to use any type of bleach or anything, because you're talking about the spindle is nothing more than a tank, aluminum, steel, stainless steel, whatever it's made out of, whatever the internal workings inside. You don't want anything other than something that's safe for those metals.
And the rubber seals inside them.
And the rubber seals, exactly.
I know he said he was using RV antifreeze over the winter, but I don't know, did he change that out when summer rolled around?
It's a good question, but yeah, if your machine is inside and it's not likely to freeze, just plain water. I'd use just plain water myself, and I'll change it every 3 months. I mean, I haven't changed this one in about 6 months, so I'm as guilty as anyone. But it's still running fine, and I can actually see it through the flow meter. Those flow meters are, they're like $20 each. They're pretty cheap, and I may have an extra one, Zach, if you need one. They're very handy to have. I actually have two on my spindle, one in this orientation, one in this orientation. So anyway, I look at the machine, it'll show me those wonderful little fans spinning.
P&G Custom Woodwork says that you need to use an anti-corrosive antifreeze.
Yep.
And corrosion would be a bit of an issue, I would imagine, even with just plain water. That's
Right.
why I went for an air-cooled one. I don't like the idea of running, you know, just more hoses and things, and an air-cooled one works just as well as a water-cooled. They can't go slow, but it's very rare you ever want to cut something really slow unless I suppose you're tapping or, well, even drilling's not too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I just didn't want the I was trying to weigh the pros and the cons, and I decided on mine on water cooled. I was really afraid of the hoses breaking and water going everywhere and shorting everything. But then when I saw the low flow, I mean the flow, it's powered by a fish tank. I mean a fish pump. It's really it doesn't take much to circulate that water. It's not a high pressure system at all, and those hoses are sealed. And I normally they come with 6mm hoses. I actually adapted it to 1/4-inch hose, so all the products that I buy for it, whether it's pumps or flow meters or anything, fit nice and comfortably, or fittings. But the main reason was because I did want it sealed from sawdust. I had an issue with my Porter cable where on occasion I will run without the dust shoe, without the vacuum shoe. And on those occasions, I have the enclosure, so I don't have to worry about dust filling my room, but it fills the enclosure. And apparently one time I was cutting MDF, and you know how MDF can be when, for those of you who have ever cut MDF without a vacuum system on there, it's just one big, huge dust cloud inside there. Inside there, imagine if the doors were open, it gets everywhere. And it got in the armature of my Porter cable, and the Porter cable didn't last 2 years. I still have it here. I have to buy a new armature for it, because the actual, it's not just charred or anything. It's actually shorted and messed up. It's I got to see what I do about that. I tried to sand it clean, but they were actually damaged. So
Todd HCNC makes a good point. MDF is simply dust. That's what it is.
That's true.
Dust held together with heat and pressure and glue.
Though it does depend on how you cut it. If you cut it too high a rate, you just create, it turns to dust. But if you cut it at the right sort of speeds, it's more fluff than dust.
Yeah.
And just looking at my air-cooled spindle, mine seems to be sort of contained, but the air flows around the outside of it. So that you're not sort of seeing the internals like you do in a router, where it's pulling it through the windings and the brushes and all the rest. On mine, the actual spindle itself looks like it's sealed.
Okay.
And it's just going down the outside sleeve.
Okay, so it's basically like a heat sink. Is nothing more than a turbine and a heat sink altogether.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so dust doesn't seem to be an issue. I'm not seeing any dust buildup in it at all. Should probably have a better look at it, but I do remember pulling it apart, and you couldn't see any of the internals on it. But you could see down the sides where the air flowed around it. So
that's good to know.
Speaking of the airflow, as compared to a router, because I know you've used both, you have that constant gust of wind blowing out of the bottom of the router when you're running it. How is the air-cooled spindle, as compared to a router?
My air-cooled spindle is nothing like a router. There's very little air actually going past it. Even it's like 10,000 RPM, it's barely able to blow the dust out of the way from where I'm cutting.
Oh, really?
Unlike my previous routers and laminate trimmers I've used, and then of course I used to have external fans on my old router as well. And that really pushed the air through, but it's just nowhere near as much airflow. You can just sort of barely feel it by putting your hand under the.
How's the heat build up?
It doesn't get hot at all. Barely even gets warm.
Huh.
Nice.
That's
good to know. That's good to know. I'll keep that in mind.
Though mine, I have seen another one as well. Though a friend of mine's got one, and then I was a bit worried about the noise mine was going to make. And I'm picking it. He's got a different fan in his. I haven't checked how much air flows through. I should do one day, but his actually sounds a lot noisier, higher pitched whine than mine. So I think it's a difference in fan design. The fan on mine looks more like it's made out of aluminium, and it looks more like an impeller than an actual fan, which probably accounts for these low airflow. But it doesn't get hot; it just barely gets warm, even after hours of running.
That's good to know. I mean, that was one of my concerns. And the other one, of course, was, and the main reason, another reason I got it was the quietness. And I mean, we can all argue till we're blue in the pants out, and we'll definitely agree that the majority of the noise comes from when the router touches that piece of wood, regardless of whatever's on top. But there are some, oh my God, there are some routers that are just so incredibly loud.
Yeah.
That at least, you know, it's all different levels. You got routers, you got cheap routers, you got good routers, then you have the air-cooled spindle, and then you have slightly quieter as the water-cooled spindle, just because the water baffles it by design. But again, nothing compares to the noise of not having your adjustments dialed in.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had if I crank mine all the way up and go super fast and slice 3/4 of an inch in one pass through wood with a 1/4 inch bit, that thing will be. I mean, this can barely contain it. I'd have to mute in a hangout. Whereas if I'm doing small passes and like I normally do, and 8,000 RPM as opposed to 24,000. You can't barely hear it. You can barely hear it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, speed doesn't everything.
Yeah. My PNG says its current router runs at 110 dB, which is pretty loud and stuff. I've clocked mine at 63. So, which is nice. I mean, it's not, you know, it's not
It's funny that number came up.
Peaceful quiet, but
it's funny that 110 decibels came up. That's how loud bagpipes are.
Ooh.
I know that for a fact.
I'm so sorry, PNG.
That's right in the hearing damaging range, that's for sure.
It is.
Above 85, I think, for sustained periods, may even be lower than that. But I did a noise comparison on my spindle to my router as well, did a video on that, and mine was about 60, 65, something like 65-ish, somewhere around there. I can't remember now, but a hell of a lot quieter than the router, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And both running at the same speed too, because I had speed control on the router.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's also a big issue. Is that it's if you have it at 8,000 or 4,000 or 2. That's the beautiful thing about a spindle. I could have it at 2 RPM. If you have it lower, well, there are certain I don't know what the waveform is, but there are certain speeds where the harmonics are just so quiet, and some where it's just so incredibly loud.
Yep.
And so for those of you who can afford it, and when you think about it, from what I've seen from professionals that well, not even hobbyists that use spindle over the long term, it may be worthwhile to get it, aside from saving your hearing but the longevity factor. You don't have to deal with changing out the router, because you don't have to deal with taking it out every once in a while to change brushes. You don't have to deal with getting a new router, although they're only $80. You know, you can buy 4 or 5 for the price of a spindle. Well, frankly, I'd rather have the one tool, high quality, the whole entire time than have to replace it with a bunch of cheap tools. But it's all a matter of money and preference for everyone. Good night,
And-
Steve. Thanks for dropping by. And I think we'll be wrapping up here as well. So, folks, for those of you with any questions, save them till next week, and we'll see you here next week. What I'm going to do is Frankie gave me the idea, so I'm going to show you how to make this on VCarve, and I'm basically going to show you how to make any shape. Call it a serving tray, for lack of a better word, and I'll throw in the little vents for fun. But it's a very simple project that you can make from any piece of wood. And I'll actually show you as well how to, on this piece, my the width of my wood was only 11 inches, which is here from side to side. In fact, you can see that it was a little short on this side, so it's actually 10 3/4. Barely noticeable. But these ears, if you were to try to make it out of the same 11-inch wide board, you couldn't get the ears on them, or we'll call them extra smaller circles. Yeah, that's what they are. Well, I'll show you how to make a duplicate circle smaller and then cut out the notch while not having the this piece here for the design, in case you need to. So thank you all for coming, and thank you folks for joining me on the panel. I'll see you all next week at the usual time, whatever that is, after Dave's show. So have a nice week, everyone. Bye-bye.